Hi everyone, it's Marie here and I'm back with a process video for Lottie Loves Paper today. I'm using the These Days collection from Cocoa Vanilla Studio. Such a pretty collection and I've got most of it. Still waiting to get another couple of bits. I don't have the mini alphas and I really want to get hold of those, but I'm playing with what I've got. And I want to scrap this photograph of myself. This is from a recent holiday when we were up in Scotland, and I want to use the blues and the greens from the collection. You'll see a little bit later on in the video that I was planning on incorporating some more of the colours, but decided in the end to just go with the blues and greens. So I've got this little strip of the rainbow paper kind of left over from another layout that I made, the first layout that I made with this collection, and I've torn off anything that wasn't blue or green. And I was going to use that just on its own across the middle of the page, but then I played around with that dotty paper and I really liked the way that looked behind it as well, so decided to incorporate that. I'm also using these two big butterfly cut files. This is a cut file from Peartree Cutfiles. I've cut it twice. I cut it once large and then once smaller. My intention wasn't to put them on top of each other, but then in the end, when I was playing around with them, they sat beautifully on top of each other, and having the two separate on the page took too much of the page up. But by layering them up, I was able to get lots of dimension. I'm able to curl up the wings, which you'll see me do a little bit later. So I'm just going to put my photograph there on top of one of the wings, and I'm just going to start playing around now with the pieces of ephemera to decide what exactly I'm going to use. Like I said, I originally intended to bring in some of the pinks and peaches, but as I started doing that, I realised that I preferred the layout just to be the greens and the blues and those sort of cool tones. So that's what I go with in the end. I also decided to incorporate some of the black and white leaves onto the page because they're really in keeping. Obviously, I've printed the photograph in black and white as well. So just playing around with these sagey coloured flowers. They're so pretty in this sagey colour. And then there's the blue ones as well that I'm going to play with in just a second. So I've decided to do the flowers in a vertical alignment, if you like, down the page. So I've got that strip running across the middle, and then my flowers are going to run vertically. I'm not going to overlap all of them. I'm going to leave some spaces between. I really didn't know what I was going to do with this layout. This is not a pre-planned layout or anything. I was just playing around with the flowers. I knew I wanted the butterfly and I knew I wanted that strip of paper, but that's pretty much all I knew. So yeah, it kind of just came together as I was going along. It was one of those ones that just worked out as I went through. So I've used some of the paper as this beautiful sagey green foliage type paper from the 6x8 paper pack, and I'm using some of that to match my photograph, and then I'm also going to put some of the black and white behind it as well. Now normally I would wonky my photographs. I do like wonky photographs with the mats going wonkily behind them as well, but I do decide for this one to keep them reasonably straight. I still do distress the edges, so it doesn't matter that they're not exactly the same size all the way around. So I do like to distress my edges. And I'm going to just pop that on top of there, and that gives a really nice bit of colour that just ties everything together along with the layout. I don't know if I do it right now, but I will be popping some dimensional foam just behind the photograph as well. Now, I've made a bit of a mistake here, is that I was really happy with the green and the blue papers at the top there, that stripy one and the spotty one, which are actually the A and B sides of the same sheet. However, I didn't stick them down at the time. I'm not quite sure why I didn't stick them down at the time, but I have now got to take everything off the page in order to stick everything back down onto the page, which is really silly because you never get everything back in the same position that you put it in the first place, but never mind. So I'm just popping some double-sided sticky. Now I have got a tape gun, which I absolutely adore. When I'm sticking big pieces of paper down, the big pieces of cardstock, I use tape on a roll so that I can just lift off the backing from the corners. That means the whole thing doesn't accidentally stick in the wrong place and you still have the ability to move it around. And by leaving the bits of tape sticking out from the sides, you can then pull them out and you're able to stick it all down really securely. Now I'm just going to pop some glue on the back of that top butterfly, just in the middle, and I'm just going to place it on top They don't fit exactly, but they don't look funny. In fact, I absolutely adore the way they look. And I'm going to just position that back onto my page just there. That's roughly where it's going to go. And I'm just going to play now. I'm going to grab a paintbrush, a really long, thick handled paintbrush, so that I can roll the butterfly wings around that to give them some dimension. Now, I'm well aware that once I put this into my album that I'm not going to have the same dimension, but I have got some shelves in my scrap room, in my scrap area, should I say, where I display some of my layout. So while they are displayed, they'll look beautiful, and it can stay up there, and then when it goes in the album, it will flatten out slightly, but I don't mind that, because if I ever get it out again, I'll just roll them back up and give them that dimension back. So I've just popped some dimensional foam on the back of my photograph. I use stuff, that's just cheap stuff that's got sticky on one side and not sticky on the other, and then just use that to attach those on. I'm going to tuck back in my bits of foliage and leaves and petals and things. I've managed to avoid taking everything off the page, which I'm really, really pleased about, so that I didn't have to try and remember where everything went. Just a little bit of glue on that butterfly. Again, I have not put a great deal of adhesive on that butterfly. I've put no foam under it or anything. I've just kind of left it to its own devices. I am going to put foam on the back of that little captured tab there, and I'm going to put little foam tabs at the top of each of these leaves, and then glue at the bottom, just so that they stick down at the base and then have a bit of dimension towards the top of the leaf. It just helps give that kind of more 3D effect. Same on that one, so there's some foam pads on the top 3 leaves and nothing on the bottom. So little foam pads now on these leaves, these flowers. I'm just using all different depths of foam pads. I bought like a multi-pack of foam pads. I didn't realise at the time, but it came with really thin ones, kind of medium ones, and then really thick ones, which are great from giving all that different kind of dimension. Something else I want to try is something that I know I've seen Monique use, I've seen Essie use, like pin flare silicone glue that when you squeeze it on, it stays wet, but it stays in a blob. It stays kind of formed so that you can stick things down and give dimension. So that's something else I want to try for giving some dimension to my pages as well, without having to use millions of sticky foam dots, which I do use a lot of sticky foam dots. Anyway, there's all my flowers pretty much stuck down now. Just popping in a couple of hearts as well. And then popping that little tab on the photograph. That's going to be my title. There's not going to be a big title on this one, but I'm just calling it The Good Stuff. I didn't want to put anything else on here. I had thought about putting one of the black foam titles on that came with this kit, with this collection, sorry. They're like black foamy words. They're beautiful, but they weren't quite the right fit for this. It was too soft, it was too pretty, so I decided to leave it all together and just have my title as The Good Stuff. I'm now playing around with a few extra words. I want to tuck in blessed, and I think I took in grateful as well. I think that's what that one says. Yes, that says grateful, because at that moment, when we managed to finally go on holiday after all these lockdown restrictions and finally get outdoors and finally do some things as a family, I did feel very blessed and I did feel very grateful. So I kind of wanted to share that feeling on my layout. The next thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of sparkle using some sequins. This is just a white mix that I've got from Lucy's shop. Just lots of pretty sparkly bits. I don't want to put loads and loads on, just a few tucked in here and there around my florals in that vertical strip that runs down the page, and I'm just sticking them on with my glossy accents, with my new cap on my glossy accents. This is the fine tipped cap that you can buy separately for glossy accents. Absolutely amazing. It no longer, I hate my glossy accents because it bungs up all the time, but this doesn't do that anymore. Hooray. So I highly recommend that. I'm now just doing a couple of thread twiddles, one in that top corner, a little bit of a darker colour, that one, and I think I do another one just down at the bottom, and that's about it for my layout. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Stay tuned, there's some close-ups on the way. Here they are. I really enjoyed this. I love with collections being able to pull out certain colour combinations rather than using all the colours within a collection, but just pulling out certain combinations. And this is one of my favourite. Blues and greens are my favourite colour. I love how this layout turned out, and I hope this inspires you to create something yourself. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you again soon.